John is Silicon Valley's rock star. He grew CISCO from $1.5 billion to $40 billion in 15 years, making it one of the world's most admired and innovative companies. John is one of the world's best CEOs and still having fun. Well, John, that's about 140 characters. That's okay, and I hope it did justice to you. With this tweet, may I request you to address this august audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. During this session, I'd like to share with you what we see going on a global basis. We have the honor to talk to most every business leader in the world and almost all government leaders in the world. And if you agree with everything I talk about over the next 30 minutes and then a Q&A session, I've failed miserably. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to make you a little bit uncomfortable. I'm going to share with you what we see on a global stage. But at the heart of it is how the Internet is literally transforming businesses, changing healthcare, changing lives, determining which countries go ahead in the global economies and perhaps which ones fall behind. Technology, how many people in this room like change? Tim, are you married? Do you ever think about getting divorced? No. Now, here I am teasing him about his most valuable relationship in life, and he's sweating. And the point that I'm making, change is great when it happens to somebody else. But when it happens to us, it makes us uncomfortable. And yet countries, companies, or individuals who do not change will get left behind in the most rapid transition that's ever occurred in our lifetime. The ability to think about what's on your mind coming into this on the global economy. I've been the optimist on the economy for the last 12 months on a global basis. Remember, 2.5 years ago, we were the first company to say you could feel this economy sliding in the financial institutions. In terms of globalization, I think it is a force that is inevitable and it's going to move with a new speed. We'd call it the new normal. I think India is very uniquely positioned to lead in that market if we have a courage to do it together. And thinking about the transformation of a country, having just met with your Prime Minister, a wonderful man, smart as can be. He represents your country unbelievably well, but clearly has a vision of listening and one of inclusion. The ability to how you use technology to accomplish key social goals, how you change healthcare forever, how you change education forever. I believe that India is not just the workforce for the future, for the globe. I believe it is also the innovation engine. This and, if you will. And how you do that as an example for your peer countries around the world, I think is what is on your mind. What's on my mind? What CISCO does well is we catch market transitions. We stay very close to our own employees. We're in the top 10 places to work in every country in the world. Last survey I saw, I think we're number 1 here in India, if I remember right when. We also catch transitions, and when we do, almost always become the number 1 product area. So it is about listening to your partners and your customers that separates us. Everything we do is about speed, then scale, flexibility, and then replicate it like a cookie cutter. We're a company that's moving from command and control, and make no mistake about it, I love command and control. Turn right, 67,000 people turn right, just like a well-deserving army does. That is powerful, but that's not the future in any organization. The future is all about what our kids understand on social networking, collaboration and teamwork. How you use video and the power of the Internet, wired and wireless, to change everything from productivity to healthcare to education. It's about these new business models that at first I would have said aren't going to happen, and now absolutely will. It's the ability, instead of doing 1 or 2 things well a year as a company, this next year we'll do 30. And at the present time, we're overachieving our goals in almost every category. That could not be done by command and control, no matter how comfortable we were in it. It's a new decade with great expectations. But I think those expectations actually may be too conservative. Because if you set expectations based on incremental improvement, small steps at a time, you never lead as a country or as a company or an individual. It's having the ability to encourage, to catch market transitions, understand how these new technologies will forever transform education to the average citizen in India at perhaps not a cost of $20 or $30 a month, but perhaps $1 a month. Or the capability to capture this and bring a doctor visit with mass capabilities to perhaps $1 per visit. The ability to do that virtually as though you're in the same room where you could be in any location throughout the country. It is the chance to catch these transitions and lead. We are deeply committed to India. You're the largest democracy in the world, but you also understand how to partner. I have my number 2 located here. We build our eastern headquarters out of India. Not because of the market or not because of a labor arbitrage. We really see the partnerships here as the vehicle to go global together. So that's what's on my mind. It is about catching these transitions. They only stay open for a short period of time. But while we have lots of weaknesses, as my wife reminds me daily, we don't miss market transitions. And when we move, we almost always become the number 1 player. It is the ability to have the humility that we're all equal in life, and yet the confidence and no fear to catch market transitions. But nothing teaches you like market transitions like working for IBM 35 years ago. A great company, but a company that missed an opportunity. It took them almost 2 decades to recover. And Sam Palmisano's brought them back. Or Wang Laboratories, smartest man I've ever met in my life. 30 years of tremendous execution. Missed one transition from mini computers to PCs, and 37,000 people lost their jobs. So it isn't a question about how do you deal with change. Change is going to happen to us all. The individuals, the companies, the countries who have the courage to embrace it, even though it makes us uncomfortable, Mr. Ambassador, at times, even teasing about it. But it is the ability to do that that makes us great. When you think about the future of any country, it doesn't matter. And in the last 10 weeks, I've probably been throughout Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, through Europe into Barcelona, down with the President of Mexico, White House multiple times, into consumer electronics shows. But wherever you see it, the ingredients that determine the success of countries are the same. All of them that have a great future have a great education system that is inclusive. Otherwise, you don't have political stability. But secondly, they're able to build the infrastructure for the future, not for the past. Roads and highways, water, electricity is important. But as you know, in this country, perhaps more than other countries, many times it's the technology that allows people to participate in an active way. The future of this country, I would argue, is about how effective is your broadband infrastructure. Do you build out the best highways in the world for the future for all your citizens? And do you capture this transition around video? How many of you blog in this room? If my team would have told me I'd be blogging 3 years ago, I would have said, bet the ranch on it. I can talk 200 words a minute. Why do I want to keyboard in 15 with 4 grammatical mistakes? I video blog 2 to 3 times a day. Take the capability of a video and be able to capture it, to look at what's going on in terms of a summary, whether it's a summary of the Prime Minister, or when I walk out of this meeting today, I'll give a summary to my entire team here in India on the commitments I made, be able to play it back in high definition response time, plug it into the network, send it by email anywhere in the world, transmit that to any screen anywhere. Think about what I just said. That is how businesses will be run. It's how we're going to communicate with our families and directions. It's how you're going to push the common issues in terms of communities of interest to the groups that are needed. It is about innovation. But innovation, unless you catch market transitions, it doesn't matter if you're in defense, it doesn't matter if you're in manufacturing, it doesn't matter in technology. It's how do you apply innovation to catching these market of transitions. If you're trying to do what others have done 10 years before you with the same game plan, you're never going to win. It's the ability to catch these transitions and to have a supportive government who listens, who argues back and forth, but moves. And you do have that in this country. But the challenge is, how do you get all these groups to work together in a collaborative group at a much faster pace? It's the nice thing about the largest democracy in the world. But once you decide to move as a country, and I believe in this country perhaps more than many people in this room do in terms of your future, I think you're destined to lead. Because once you get moving, your speed can be amazing. But the ability to think about this in terms of how do you change the world, not just India, but the world. First time 3 billion people around the world making less than $3 a day. It's something we all should say is unacceptable. How do we change that? And I would argue it's through these type of parameters that it can be done. Common vocabulary I want to talk about. Tipping points. I believe you move when there's a transition going on in the market. A transition can be as simple as an economic transition. When that occurs on a downturn, even though we'd like to avoid it, we do the opposite at CISCO. We have a playbook we follow through every downturn. Every single downturn that's occurred, 1993, 1997, 2001, 2003, again in 2009, we've not only come out of it as a stronger company, we gained market share in almost every product category. We gained market cap versus all of our peers. Same thing as you begin to transition from not just the Internet being about data, but voice over the Internet, and a movement into being the number one player within that. So how you capture these transitions as a company, as an individual, as a company, determines your future. The second part is the models will change. Almost everything you do should be, in my opinion, first, what do you want to look like 5 to 10 years out? Because if you haven't thought through your vision and what does that really mean in education, healthcare, manufacturing, high tech, you're already in trouble. And then what is your sustainable differentiation? And be realistic on what that is or is not. If you haven't got a sustainable differentiation, you enter a market, you're probably not going to be successful. And that should be 2 to 4 years. And then what is the execution? What is your priorities for the next 12 to 18 months? And so this is really the way that you begin, in my opinion, to use technology not to enable these processes, but to embed them so deeply in how you interface to healthcare or education or manufacturing or high tech. You can't tell what is technology and what's your delivery mechanism. I think all of us understand this chart, but the speed and the inevitability of it is there. And how literally the innovation, I not only see India as the workforce for much of the world, virtually and physically. I actually see India as an innovation engine. And many of our creative ideas are coming out of emerging markets and then straight into the developed world. The ability to think about what does this mean in terms of fundamental demographic shifts. Number of countries you look out 40 years from now are shrinking. Many more are aging. If you look where India is positioned, as many of the speakers have already alluded to, uniquely in terms of a young population, in my opinion, one of the most optimistic in the world. The key is, do we, working together as a society, take this optimism and play it up one level, or do we disappoint our young people? I think it is the ability to literally think about these trends that occur on a global basis in terms of aging populations. The developed world, if we do not drive productivity, our standard of living will drop. We have to look at these technologies I'm talking about, how you drive productivity, not at 1 or 2% a year, as economists would say it's the maximum you can drive it, but much like occurred between 1997 and 2004 with the first phase of the Internet, which went to 3 to 5%, exactly as we'd predicted. Alan Greenspan and President Clinton's economic advisor, Laura Tyson. The ability for countries that have the youth coming in and to say, how do we not only recognize the economic power comes to us, but how do we leverage these market transitions even more effectively? And how do you take the strategy and economic policies, which now, in my opinion, will be the new normal, not the exception? The ability to think about how do you connect these communities, either the urbanization centers of the future, when 500 million people in the next 5 years relocate to cities. How do you basically also keep them in the large states in the country where you say, how do I take virtual cities in place? And not only create the education, the healthcare there, but how do I create the jobs that go with it? And a lot of it will be around mobile devices. The ability literally to do this first on physical capability and then a virtual capability. New business organization structures. Don't model the education system after the past 40 years. Model for where it's going. You give a young person a flip. You don't have to tell them how to use it. You don't have to tell them how to communicate. You don't tell them how to submit this to their teacher or what collaboration's about. You have to create the highways for them to do that. And then say, how do we, in terms of government and business and education, work together toward a common goals to really take the raw power of this Internet and bring it to life in a way that creates jobs. When you think about where this is going, I'm glad that didn't go out. You think about the first phase of the Internet was done in business and then brought into the consumer, entering orders online, doing customer support online. The next phase was the consumer, our young people, social networking, bringing it straight into business. We now run our entire company off of social networking groups with a very disciplined approach to process. And instead of doing 1 or 2 priorities a year, we do 30. Instead of productivity growing at 2 or 3% like my peers are growing, our productivity the last 2 quarters is growing 17%. That's an annualized rate of 34%. We can compete with anyone in the world with those type of numbers, regardless of cost of labor. Why am I in India? Not a labor arbitrage. It's the talent. It's the talent.